August 21st, 2025, the night sky over Ukraine turned into a storm of fire. Russia had just unleashed its largest aerial assault of the year, a terrifying mix of 574 drones and 40 ballistic and cruise missiles. The targets stretched across Ukraine's western regions, striking dangerously close to NATO's border with Poland. For Ukraine, this wasn't just another night of war, it was the third largest drone attack since the full-scale invasion began and the eighth largest missile strike in 2025. For the world, it was a chilling reminder. The war was not slowing down, it was escalating. Just after midnight, Ukrainian radar screens lit up. Hundreds of small, fast-moving objects were detected racing across the sky. These were Shahed suicide drones, cheap Iranian-made UAVs that Russia has relied on to terrorize cities and overwhelm defenses. Behind them came a deadlier wave, Iskander ballistic missiles and Kaliber cruise missiles designed to slip through defenses and smash hardened targets like fuel depots, power plants, and military bases. Air raid sirens screamed across Lviv, Ivano-Frankivsk, and as far west as Uzhhorod, near the Hungarian border. Civilians huddled in bunkers as the night sky filled with streaks of fire. But Ukraine was ready. Over the past 2 years, it has built one of the most integrated air defense networks in Europe. Patriot pack 3 batteries donated by the US and Germany locked onto high-altitude ballistic missiles. NASAMS and Iris-T systems engaged cruise missiles flying low and fast. Mobile anti-drone units with machine guns, radar, and jamming gear hunted Shahed drones one by one. According to Kyiv, the majority of Russia's missiles and drones were shot down. Still, some broke through. One drone struck an industrial site in Zakarpattia, wounding several civilians. Another missile landed near a US-owned electronics factory close to Hungary's border, killing one worker and sparking a fire that lit up the night. The message from Moscow was unmistakable. Nowhere in Ukraine is safe. This strike wasn't just about Ukraine, it was also a warning to NATO. The Lviv military base, one of the largest in western Ukraine, lies only 15 miles from Poland. For years, it has been a NATO training hub where US and European instructors worked with Ukrainian troops long before the 2022 invasion. Hitting targets so close to Poland risks accidents, escalation, or worse, a stray missile crossing into NATO territory. In fact, in November 2022, a stray missile landed in Poland, killing 2 farmers and sparking fears of direct NATO involvement. This August 2025 strike reopened that nightmare scenario. NATO radars tracked every missile, every drone, and though none crossed the border, the alliance knew how easily one mistake could ignite a wider war. Why launch 574 drones in one night? The answer lies in Russia's strategy. Drones are cheap, costing as little as $20,000 each compared to the $1 to $3 million price tag of a Patriot interceptor missile. By sending them in massive swarms, Russia tries to exhaust Ukrainian defenses, forcing Kyiv to use expensive ammunition and reveal its radar positions. Once defenses are stretched thin, missiles follow, faster, heavier, and harder to stop. This tactic has been called drone saturation, and it's changing modern warfare. Instead of tanks and soldiers, the front lines are now filled with machines in the sky. For ordinary Ukrainians, the attack was terrifying. Windows shattered, fires burned, and power flickered across the west. In Lviv, families spent the night underground. One eyewitness told local media, "The drones sounded like motorbikes buzzing in the sky, but there were hundreds of them." Hospitals across the region went on emergency alert, expecting casualties. By morning, at least 18 people were injured, and the death toll stood at 1. But the psychological impact was far greater. It was proof that even far from the Eastern Front, war could arrive at any doorstep. The attack also shook international capitals. In Kyiv, President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the assault as the largest terrorist strike in months and vowed retaliation. In Warsaw, Polish officials warned that any spillover into their territory would trigger consultations under Article 4 of the NATO treaty. In Washington, the Pentagon called the attack reckless escalation and reaffirmed support for Ukraine's air defense. Meanwhile, Moscow State TV boasted of the strike as proof that Russia could still dictate the pace of war. The world was watching. If Russia could unleash this kind of firepower in one night, what would come next? Ukraine had survived the barrage. Its air defenses held, its people endured, and its army remained standing. But what happened next would shock Russia and change the battlefield in ways no one expected. Dawn broke broke over Ukraine, and with it came the silence after the storm. The smoldering remains of shot-down drones littered fields and roads. Missile fragments lay scattered across western villages. But while Russia boasted of a successful strike, Ukraine's resolve had only hardened. The Kremlin had wanted to intimidate. Instead, it ignited something far more dangerous: Ukrainian retaliation. Within hours, Ukraine's own unmanned systems were airborne. Unlike Russia's Iranian-built Shaheds, Ukraine had spent the last year developing a domestic drone industry. Cheap, fast, and versatile. 3D-printed UAVs, costing only a few $1,000s each, rolled out of makeshift factories, often built in underground bunkers or civilian garages. That morning, swarms of these drones headed east. Their targets were not just tanks or artillery, but the very infrastructure that powered Russia's war effort. Fuel depots in Belgorod erupted in flames. Rail lines carrying ammunition toward the front were cut. Command posts deep behind Russian lines went dark after precision strikes. It was a stunning reversal. Within 24 hours of Russia's record strike, Ukrainian drones were hitting back with speed and fury. But Ukraine's answer wasn't limited to machines in the sky. Across occupied territories, resistance fighters, some backed by Kyiv, others acting independently, began sabotage missions. Bridges collapsed under the weight of explosives. Ammunition trucks mysteriously ignited. Even Russian officers found themselves targeted in daring hit-and-run attacks. The tactic was clear. While Russia relied on brute force, Ukraine would rely on mobility, creativity, and unpredictability. The ghosts of past wars whispered here: Vietnam, Afghanistan, where smaller, nimble forces bled giants dry. Stung by Ukrainian retaliation, Russia escalated again. 10 of its most advanced jets, Su-34 bombers and Su-35 fighters, roared across the front lines, carrying payloads meant to cripple Ukrainian infrastructure. But waiting for them were Ukraine's Patriot missile batteries and radar systems linked to NATO satellites. As the jets approached, radars locked on. Patriots fired. Explosions filled the sky. Within minutes, multiple Russian aircraft were falling in flames, their wreckage scattering across fields. For Russia, it was humiliation. Its most advanced fighters, worth tens of millions of dollars each, had been shot from the sky by weapons it once dismissed as Western toys. The world reacted quickly. In Brussels, NATO held emergency consultations. Officials worried that Russia's escalation was inching dangerously close to alliance borders. In Washington, lawmakers called for accelerated delivery of F-16 fighter jets and long-range ATACMS missiles to Ukraine. In Beijing and Delhi, leaders urged restraint, fearing that oil prices, already surging by 12% overnight, could cripple global markets. Every capital understood a single mistake, a stray missile, could drag the entire world into conflict. Beyond the battlefield, the economic aftershocks were immediate. Brent crude surged past $100 a barrel as tankers slowed in the Black Sea. European energy markets rattled, with gas futures jumping 15%. Insurance premiums for airlines flying over Eastern Europe doubled overnight. In less than 24 hours, Russia's barrage had rippled from Ukrainian skies to the wallets of consumers in Berlin, London, and New York. But perhaps the most powerful effect wasn't military or economic. It was psychological. For Ukrainians, surviving such an onslaught strengthened national unity. Social media flooded with videos of Patriot missiles intercepting targets, drone operators celebrating successful strikes, and civilians defiantly waving flags amid rubble. For Russians, the message was darker. Soldiers on the front lines whispered of drones that never stop coming. Families in Belgorod and Kursk watched oil depots burn, realizing that the war was no longer confined to Ukrainian soil. Fear was spreading on both sides of the border. This battle was more than just one night of drones and missiles. It was a glimpse into the future of warfare. Quantity over quality. Russia proved that launching hundreds of cheap drones could overwhelm even advanced defenses. Adaptability over brute force. Ukraine showed that with ingenuity, 3D-printed UAVs, guerrilla tactics, and Western tech, a smaller nation could stand toe-to-toe with a superpower. Technology versus manpower. For the first time, machines in the sky mattered as much as soldiers on the ground. Generals around the world were taking notes. From Washington to Beijing, every military academy was studying this clash as a case study in 21st century conflict. Russia thought it could break Ukraine with its biggest strike yet: 574 drones, 40 missiles in in one night. Instead, Ukraine not only survived, it struck back harder, faster, and smarter. The war is far from over. But this much is clear. The battle for Ukraine is rewriting the rules of modern warfare. And the world is watching, knowing that what happens here could shape conflicts for decades to come.